In the grand, violent theatre of 20th century warfare, history records tales of epic courage and devastating loss. But there is one conflict, one campaign so strange, so utterly absurd, that it has been relegated to the footnotes of military history. This is the story of a modern mechanized army, armed with machine guns and the full backing of a national government that declared war on a population of flightless birds and, well, ingloriously lost. This is the story of the Great Emu War of 1932. To understand how this bizarre chapter of history came to be, we must first travel to the arid plains of Western Australia in the years after the First World War. The Australian government, seeking to reward its returning soldiers, instituted a program to provide free farming land to its veterans. As many as 5,000 accepted the offer, settling in the remote wheat belt to begin new lives as farmers. But this was marginal land, barely arable, and the promises of a prosperous future soon withered under the harsh Australian sun. Then came a global catastrophe. In October 1929, the Wall Street stock market crashed, and the shockwaves of the Great Depression rolled across the world. The price of wheat, well, it just plummeted. The Australian government, which had encouraged the farmers to plant more, failed to deliver on its promised subsidies, leaving the soldier settlers facing financial ruin. Their farms were failing. Their government had abandoned them. And then, the enemy arrived. Driven by a severe drought, a great migration began. 20,000 emus, enormous flightless birds standing nearly 2 meters tall, descended upon the cultivated lands of the Campion district. For the emus, it was a paradise, an endless buffet of wheat and, honestly, plenty of water for livestock. For the farmers, though, it was an invasion. The birds devoured the crops with what one newspaper called voracious beaks. They trampled what they didn't eat. And with their immense strength, they smashed through the rabbit-proof fences, creating huge gaps that allowed another plague, rabbits, to pour in and finish off what little remained. The farmers were desperate. They were ex-soldiers, and they knew the power of the machine gun. A deputation of these veterans travelled to Perth to meet with the Minister of Defence, Sir George Pearce. Their request was simple, and yet utterly unprecedented. They asked for military assistance to cull the emu population. Pearce agreed. He argued that the wee birds would make for good target practice for his men, and well, it was a way of being seen to help the struggling farmers. And so, in October of 1932, the Australian military prepared to mobilise. The objective was clear. The enemy was identified. The Great Emu War was about to begin. The so-called war was placed under the command of Major Gwynedd Purvis Wyn Aubrey Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery's 7th Heavy Battery. His force consisted of just 2 soldiers, Sergeant S. McMurray and Gunner J. O'Halloran. Their arsenal, 2 Lewis automatic machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. A Fox movie-tone cinematographer was also sent along to capture the expected victory for the newsreels. The first engagement took place on the 2nd of November 1932. Major Meredith and his men travelled to Campion, where a mob of approximately 50 emus had been sighted. The soldiers set up their positions, took aim, and fired. The results were disappointing. The birds were well out of range, and as the bullets kicked up dust far short of their targets, the emus scattered in all directions, running at speeds up to 50 kilometers per hour. They were simply too fast and too unpredictable. After the first volley, only a small number of birds were killed, a vague and, honestly, rather unimpressive tally. 2 days later, on November 4th, Meredith planned a more sophisticated operation. An ambush was laid near a local dam where over 1,000 emus were spotted heading for water. The gunners waited patiently until the birds were at point-blank range. This was to be a decisive slaughter. The machine gun opened fire, 12 birds fell, and then the gun jammed. The remaining 1,000 emus scattered, melting back into the bush before the weapon could be cleared. The soldiers were beginning to realize they were not fighting a simple pest. They were fighting a surprisingly effective guerrilla army. The emus didn't bunch together in dense, easy-to-target formations. Instead, they split into innumerable small units, making the machine guns uneconomical. Ornithologist Dominic Cervanti would later write with a hint of admiration that the emu command had evidently ordered guerrilla tactics. Army observers even noted that each pack seemed to have its own leader, a large black-plumed bird that would stand watch while its comrades feasted on the wheat, giving a warning call at the first sign of approach. The Australian military found itself outmaneuvered, outsmarted, and utterly frustrated by an army of birds. In a desperate attempt to gain an advantage, Major Meredith ordered one of the Lewis guns to be mounted on the back of a truck. The idea was to chase the emus down, firing from a moving platform. The reality was a farce. The truck was unable to keep pace with the birds on the rough terrain, and the ride was so jarring that the gunner was unable to fire a single accurate shot.
They got away!
One truck even crashed after colliding with an emu. The birds, it turned out, were faster and more durable than the army's vehicles. By November 8th, after 6 days of campaigning, the futility of the operation was undeniable. An estimated 2,500 rounds of ammunition had been fired, for a kill count that official reports put somewhere between 50 and 200 birds. Major Meredith himself was developing a grudging respect for his foe. He was quoted in the press stating, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. They can face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks." News of the Emu War had spread, and the press was having a field day. The military operation became a subject of national and international ridicule. In the Australian House of Representatives, politicians joked that if any medals were to be awarded for the conflict, they should go to the emus, who had won every round so far. Facing public humiliation and, well, a clear lack of results, the Minister of Defence, Sir George Pearce, ordered a withdrawal. On November 8th, Major Meredith and his crestfallen troops were recalled from the field. The first campaign of the Great Emu War had ended. The emus were, without a doubt, the undisputed victors. The military's withdrawal did nothing to solve the farmers' problem. The emus, emboldened by their victory, continued their raids on the wheat crops. The farmers once again pleaded for government assistance. On November 12th, just 4 days after the withdrawal, Major Meredith was redeployed to the front. The second campaign was, by some measures, more successful. The soldiers had learned from their previous failures. By December 2nd, they were reportedly killing approximately 100 emus per week. When the operation was finally concluded on December 10th, Meredith's official report claimed a total of 986 confirmed kills, with a further 2,500 wounded birds that later died of their injuries. This was achieved with 9,860 rounds of ammunition, a rate of exactly 10 bullets per confirmed kill. These numbers have been disputed, but even if accurate, the ratio of bullets to casualties was considered far too high to justify continuing military action. The campaign was also drawing criticism from conservationists in the United Kingdom who protested the extermination of the rare emu. The military solution had failed. The government, finally admitting defeat, turned to a more practical and ultimately more effective solution. So they started supplying ammunition straight to the farmers and set up a bounty system for hunting emus. This, well, decentralized approach turned out to be much more effective than the earlier centralized military campaign. In just 6 months during 1934, more than 57,000 bounties were actually claimed. The final lasting defense against the emus, interestingly enough, turned out not to be guns, but fences. The widespread construction of strong, carefully maintained exclusion barrier fencing eventually did the trick, keeping the emus out of the farming regions for good. The war was over, won not by military might, but by better infrastructure and economic incentives. The Great Emu War remains one of the most peculiar and fascinating chapters in Australian history. It's a story of desperation, of miscalculation, and of the unpredictable resilience of nature. It serves as a humorous yet poignant reminder that even the most advanced human technology can be humbled by the forces of the natural world. If you found this tale of military misadventure as fascinating as we did, be sure to subscribe to Kronos Uncovered and join us as we continue to unearth the past. And don't forget to watch our next investigation into a mystery from the ancient world, the forgotten god more powerful than Zeus.